Welcome to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, your personal, professional, and career development podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dr. Dave Peltz, and along with me is my esteemed super colleague, Dr. Joe Hamlett. How are you doing today, Dr. Joe?
I'm doing pretty good, Dr. Super Dave.
Super Dave. It reminds me of an old comedy thing from way back in the day. Super Dave Osborne, I think
Oh
his name
yeah, I
was.
remember that. Yeah, yeah.
So we'd like to welcome all of our viewers and listeners back to another episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. If this is your first time, we hope you get something out of it. And if you listen to us more than once, hopefully you're still getting stuff out of this. We've got a very special topic today. It's near and dear to Joe and I. This is our 200th episode,
Yep,
episode 200 that we've dropped consistently every Monday for
yep.
200 Mondays in a row.
That is
So
crazy.
yeah, so Joe, I know you're chomping at the bit. I'm gonna let you. I'm not gonna let you. We discussed. You're gonna kick this one off. I'm not gonna let you do anything. So why don't you get us started, Joe, and on what it means to hit episode 200.
Well, Dave, like you said, this is special because we started this podcast coming up on 4 years ago now, and like you said, we've been consistent with episodes every Monday for the last 199 weeks, and so tomorrow is going to make 200 episodes. Which, when we started this, never would even imagine that we would reach this milestone. It's still, we brought it up right before even starting the podcast, and it's like 200 episodes. I mean, how many times have you done something 200 times that consistently,
Yeah,
and not miss a beat?
yeah.
It's just still, it's going through my mind that we accomplished this, task.
Hmm.
And we started looking at some statistics, which we already aware of some of them, but just um the fact that we are in 2% of the podcasters out there still doing podcasts after 200. Again, that's amazing. 2%. I mean, it goes back to being a doctor.
Yeah.
1 to 2%, of us are doctors out there. So just again, being in that elite group, or not necessarily saying elite better than anybody, but just being in a very select group of people that have reached this milestone. So, yeah, so we thought about, how do you get to 200 episodes? And if you think back, it's that consistency, it's that persistence, it's the discipline. Because believe me, there are many days when me and Dave would jump on here and be like, "Man, do we have anything to
Right.
give today?" And we still did it.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing about again, this whole journey. Even when we didn't want to do it, even our audience is not huge like some other podcasts that may have 200, but the reality is we want to do this. We're going to continue to do this, and to
Hmm.
reach this milestone, it's just a testament of that commitment to do this, to do it every week, even when we don't want to, even when we have family coming over and all those types of things, we still take time and get this accomplished. So, uh, again, we just want to acknowledge 200 episodes. So I'll stop there. Have you, throw in your input, what 200 episodes means to you, Dave.
Okay. I'm, just, I'm looking at the time. I forgot to check the time when we started, so I'm just making something up arbitrarily, like 562 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I remember when we celebrated our 25th episode, and we were
Right.
like, "Woo,
Yeah.
we did it!
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at that percentage." Because they say something like 50% don't ever make it to even 25 episodes, and then we
Right.
celebrated
Yeah.
100, and that's an even bigger milestone. But this, yeah, to be in that 2% club is what they sometimes refer to it online as for podcasters. It's still hard for me to believe that we this is actually episode 200. I mean, but it is. And you think about that, there's 52 weeks in a year. So in 8 more episodes, that's going to be our fourth season is done.
Yep.
Four
Yep.
years of doing this. And
Right.
it's cool because sometimes we've had a backlog of like 12 or 15 episodes in the bank. So, because we got on a roll with guest speakers and just topics and ideas, which was really cool because then you just schedule them out and
Right.
it feels
Right.
like you're taking a holiday. But then there's
Right.
other times, like you said, that it's like we're literally living week to week trying to figure out what's a good topic for this week, what's a good topic for this week, and that's that creativity that you have to have as well, the discipline, the perseverance, the creativity. I mean, that's it. I mean, you've got to have all of those things and the other things that you had mentioned too, because the creativity, I believe, is where burnout starts happening.
Right.
You lose your focus, you lose your drive, you can't think of anything else to talk about or topics to discuss, and you hit like a dead end. You've basically, for lack of better terms, said all you can say.
Right.
And I think that's something special that we have, is that we're constantly thinking about how can we help people better themselves in so many different ways. And and because this is episode 200, we Joe and I have been thinking more and more about what this podcast means and what we want to do with it. It's constantly evolving. So in our next season, there's going to be some a little bit more narrowing of the focus, which is not a bad thing. It's going to be the same thing. It's just it's going to help us narrow our focus to be even more deliberate
Right.
about what we talk about, and discuss, and what we have, what we have our guest speakers talk about. And it's just exciting to know that we're here and we've reached this milestone. And it's just, yeah, I'm at a loss for words, believe it or not.
Well, you said, I think one word that sums it up for the most part for me, and you mentioned it, the excitement, and that's what it is to me. Again, even though those days I get on here, I'm like, oh man, we got to come up with something. It's still the excitement of creating, doing
Mhm,
something that again, not many other people are doing it, and being consistent about it. But it's that excitement about where does this next chapter, where does this lead to? What
mhm,
this journey, where is this taking us because of this, what we're doing, and that's the way I view it. And like I said many times on our podcast, you know, since I turned my switch on back in 2005 when I went back to school, I refuse to turn it off. And that's what this feels like for me. This podcast that we're doing leads to something else and to
mhm,
something else. Like you said, we've had to refine it, do some different things. And that's what it continues to do for us too, is to have us to continue to think about things differently, look at it differently. Are we still being, creating content that people want? Are we impacting other people's lives? And that's what we want to do. And so
mhm,
that's why I think we continue to do this, because of that, the excitement, the ability to impact somebody. And like we said before, out of these now 200 episodes, if we help one person, then we've done what we set out to do.
mhm,
That's the beauty of this whole thing is, we give up our time and our energy uh, to help others, and we've been on that path for such a long time. I don't want to stop doing that, and this is
mhm.
one way we can do that. This is a platform that we can continue to do that in this type of way. So it's just like you say, almost at a loss of words of what this has meant to me anyway, to continue to, come down to my office and do this every week and look forward to it every
Mhm.
week, regardless of how my week went, how, the way things look out there. That this has remained the constant.
Yeah,
It's much more than, again, just me and you coming together on a Sunday and having conversations. It's much more than that.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, before we start our podcast, we just don't jump right in, and we usually talk for about a half an hour,
Right.
hour and a half, and just you know mull through the week and discuss the
Yeah.
successes and the that we've had, and the good things and the bad things, and the things that have challenged us for that week. And that's and we talk about what's going on in the world, and around us, and we try to understand what would be good for that week or those weeks, or to create like a little mini series like we did. You know, I'm going to go back like 6 weeks. I'm not the same me, and we've said this like the last three episodes in a row. Where are you today? Who are we today? The bigger picture, finding focus, shifting gears. All these things. That was like a mini series of like 6 episodes or something like that. That wasn't intentional until we realized what we were what we were really doing those weeks, and realized that we could
Right. There
build
was a
upon it.
theme.
There's a
Yeah.
theme, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's going to be one of the things that we try to do in season, do I say
It'll
it,
be
season
five.
five, season
Season
five.
five.
Yep.
Right.
And over the course of the this last 4 years, we've changed our background a few times. We've got a custom intro for our
Right.
podcast. We've redid the uh, intro video dynamics, where it's not just
Right.
a static picture. And we've which kind of highlights some of our earlier guest speakers. And just the format, a lot of things have changed. The technology's changed
Right. Right.
over the
Yeah.
last 4 years, and which has helped us immensely, because in the first couple of years it was kind of arduous to make this podcast a podcast. Just, I mean, recording it's probably the easiest thing. Click
Right.
record, save.
Right.
It's everything else that goes on behind the scenes, the topics, the technology, the putting it together, the scheduling, the
Right.
dropping,
Yeah.
the finding the right people to talk to, and scheduling during the week a lot of times after we got off work, to make this happen, to make it convenient for them. And we've had some wonderful guest speakers. I believe all of them have been wonderful, and I think their stories that they've shared have really inspired us in so many ways. And we said we were going to do one guest speaker a week, and we
Right.
got close, and then we got a little stuck in that gear of not being able to find. I shouldn't say not being able to find. I think it was more of a scheduling challenge when we talk
I'd
about
say that.
scheduling,
Right.
because you know we have to find time during the week after we get off work, after we have our other stuff, either early in the morning or in the evening, and that became challenging. And then
Right.
the holidays, whether it's the summer or the 3-day weekends, that kind of interrupts things. And so you know there are a lot of challenges to podcasting, but you can do it if you want to. You
Right.
just have to be consistent, deliberate, persevere, like you said. And even on the days when when you've had a shitty week, you just got to pull it together, and redirect your focus on your podcast, because this to us is like the big highlight positive moment for the week for us.
Well, you touched on it. Like you said, a lot of times we get on here and we don't record for hour and a half, and that's what's funny because I'll go up and tell the wife, I'll say, "Hey, we're about to record." She's like, "What have you been doing for the last 2 hours?"
Why do? She's like, oh, we're getting ready to record. I thought you were done.
Right. And so you're right. It is that, time we can come together and kind of process the previous week or weeks before that or what's coming up.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like a mini therapy
Right.
session for both of us just to, get things out there and maybe
Well,
help
we are
get some
doctors, so
clarity.
we can't
That's
we
true.
can.
Yeah, that's true. We both lay down on the couch, take turns laying down on the couch and ask,
Taking notes.
right, ask each other how we're
This
doing.
guy
So
sucks. He's got a bad attitude.
but yeah, again, this has remained a vital part of what we do and who we are. So Dave touched on the challenges that we face with the podcast, especially just being us two. We don't have assistants to schedule or to edit or do any of those types of things. So everything we're doing here is just me and Dave. Which again is a great feeling to know that we're producing this, we're putting this out there, just me and Dave.
Mhm.
Again, you would think after all these years we might have had assistants, but we haven't. Every
Yeah.
episode is me and Dave doing this. So
Yeah.
again, I'm just proud of what we've accomplished.
Absolutely.
Again, to get to this point, me and you, like you said, we've had guest speakers along the way, but at the same time, it's been us, and we've been grateful to have all those different conversations, meeting different people. That's been an amazing journey as well, to extend beyond our borders, even to
Yeah.
go international.
International guest
Uh,
speakers. Yep.
yeah, and even to go outside of what we do, and bringing in people from with all different types of backgrounds, all type of experiences.
Experiences and stories. And I mean,
Right.
just,
And so again, it just goes along with this whole theme of journeys of not so ordinary people, because all of us have a journey, all of us have a story, and we've been, you know, thankful and grateful enough to have people on our podcast to share their stories, and they've been grateful. They've
mhm,
appreciated, having that opportunity to share their story and things
yeah.
about them, that maybe not have gotten out there in on different form or in different formats, or had the opportunity to even speak about certain things.
Mhm.
So, I jokingly say it's kind of a mini therapy session for me and Dave. In some cases, it may be some mini therapy for other people, our guests, or people in the in our audience that are listening or watching the podcast. It may hopefully help them get through some things that they might have thought they were all alone,
Yeah.
and things that they were facing or experiencing. Maybe they're hearing some things that are similar to what they've gone through, and see that they can come out on the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about the, just us, just that sharing with you and I and the guest speakers,
Right.
is just sharing those experiences. And you took the words out of my mouth, that, you know, they're not alone, that
Right.
they can get through it. There's people that have had, that are in the same situation or even worse that have
Right.
pulled through it. And, we've said so many times, we can't speak for a lot of these other experiences, demographics, ethnicities, geographic
Right.
regions. I mean, there are so many different experiences out there. We couldn't experience all those experiences in an infinite number of lifetimes. Well, I suppose we could, but because of infinite. But um, you know what I'm saying? It's just
Right.
there. There's no way for one person to experience everything. So we do learn from all of our guest speakers. We learn from each other
Absolutely. Yeah.
every week. We learn something, and it's just it's pretty cool when you think about it, because we are impacting people's lives. We may not hear about all the people that we've impacted. We may not have heard, from every listener. And to your, you mentioned earlier, we don't have a huge base yet, but we've got enough that people keep coming back and listening and referring other people to say, hey,
Right.
listen to it. And that's all that matters to us, is that, we're positively impacting people's lives in one way or another. And that's really, at the core of this podcast. That's why we do it, is because, we've had our tough times, and
Right.
our guest speakers have had their tough times, whether it's personally, professionally, or career wise. And sharing those experiences from, different people with different backgrounds, different colors, different gender, it's an amazing feeling to sit down with them and hear their stories, because it impacts us as the
Right.
podcasters. I mean,
Absolutely.
it changes. It's some of the podcast guest speakers have changed our views on
Right.
certain things, and
Right.
that's growth, and that's what we want out of this podcast is growth.
Well, and again, you touched on it again, that you talked about people have shared their experiences as far as personal, professional, career development, but we've learned so much more. Again, them sharing their stories to how they got to that. So I think that to me is the most appealing thing about what we do, and when we have guests, especially when we have guests,
Mhm.
because we get to hear a different perspective, a different way of seeing things, or just new approaches to things that we hadn't considered.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I was like, oh wow, I didn't even think about that. It's so many times. I bet if you went back and watched a lot of our podcasts with guests on them, that's one of the things you'll probably hear me say is wow, or okay, I
Mhm.
didn't even think about it that way. So like Dave said, there's so many learnings and experiences that I'm appreciative of, that I've been able to hear, I've been able to share with our guests, and then me and Dave will get off the podcast with those guests and have further conversations about get deeper into it, and then even communicate later down the
Yeah.
road about certain things. So it's just been a great experience all the way around.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it has taken a lot of effort and energy to get to this point,
Hmm.
but we have not one time have we said, "Hey, we don't want to do this anymore."
Yeah.
That's the what I love the most is like there are days when we're like, "Man, we got to do a podcast," but the idea of saying no, we're not going to do a podcast
Yeah. It's
is
never
is
entered our
is
mind.
very very
We,
small thought about
yeah. We've
ever
never said
doing.
we're going to skip a week. We've
Right.
always
No, we've
we,
never.
we might have, enough in the bank to where we don't have to
Right.
record every week,
Yeah. But
but we've
yeah.
always had enough to drop every
Yep.
week. And if we didn't, well, we do. We do. We
Right.
just drop every week. That's what we do.
Yeah. So again,
It's
it's that commitment, and I don't know if people realize how important that is. You stay committed to something, how far you can go with it. Again, me and Dave would have never imagined we'd have international guests
yeah.
and things like that, and people that are successful in their careers and people that are champions. I
Hmm.
mean, again, to have a champion on here, just out of nowhere,
Yeah.
I've told so many people about having someone who's a champion caliber professional, and just to again to even think about, I say that right now and thinking, wow, that's
Hmm.
very cool. How
Yeah.
many other people can say that, in your spare time, you do a podcast, you have these types of guests on your
Yeah. That are
podcast,
willing
you
to
have
take
these
the time out of
conversations.
their schedule
Exactly. And to share
to
their
sit here with us.
experiences.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's turned into something much more than we ever thought when we started
Hmm.
having a conversation that took us about 6 months before we launched our first podcast because we were just stuck.
The early ones, if you want to start a podcast, your early ones are going to be rough,
Yeah,
unless you like have a professional studio, which we don't,
right.
and
Yeah,
all this, tens of thousands of dollars of professional
right.
equipment. We
Equipment.
don't,
Yeah, yeah.
they're going to be rough, and there's going to be some that you're going to be like, wow, that should never be out there. People should never have to see or listen to that. And
Yep,
we have a few of those that we from early on, but
yep.
you'll find your stride, you'll find your groove, you'll find your niche, your niche, and you'll be able to run with it.
Right,
It's there. You said it earlier. We have so much gratitude for this podcast and the guest speakers and what it's doing for other people. What it's doing for our guest speakers. Some of them haven't even been on podcasts before, or
right. Yeah,
only a couple, and they're just trying to share their stories. And
right,
we've created this space for people to do that when we invite them on the show, or on the show, the podcast, and it's really cool because we talk to them before we even have a recording, and
right,
we get to know them and get to know their stories, and then when we have them on the podcast, it's like even more of their story comes out, and
right.
that's
Yeah,
so cool. Or their advice. We've had you know people talk about financial planning, and leadership in these different areas, personal, professional, and career development. Like we said, we've talked about 200 different things. We've talked
right,
about 200 different things. And it's like they're they're good. It's good information, I think,
right,
and I think I know our information's good, but I think the I can't, this is gonna sound goofy, but I think a lot of the better information comes from our guest speakers
right,
sometimes.
right.
It's
Again, because it's a perspective possibly or
yeah.
information that we don't know about. So again, we can only share about our experiences, the things we
Mhm.
know, and our guests bring another additional part, additional information, additional perspectives, just different ways of things, and even having us think about things differently just
Mhm.
because of where they grew up, how they grew up,
Yeah.
what industries they've been in. All
I
those
was just going to say
things
that different
have
industries and
right
different
just
people in different industries.
yeah, just all those things have contributed to us growing, continuing to grow. Again, just talking to some of the people that have shared some of the tips they use, some
Mhm.
other podcasters, this is what they do, some of the tools they've used that we've started to use. So
Mhm.
it has been a big learning experience, a 4-year learning experience, which again would have never imagined. I'd say I'm a podcaster,
Yeah.
right? At this age and much later in life, and again, just
You're
excited.
26. What are you
I
talking about?
know, but
It's
everybody
normal
thinks
for us.
it's
Everyone,
still
it's normal for us at this age to be doing this.
so again, it is very hard to put into words to reach a milestone like this, to get to 200 episodes at the very beginning, thinking, let's just try this out, not knowing
Mhm.
where it was going to take us. But now, like Dave said, 8 more episodes, and that'll be finishing our 4th year and starting our 5th year. So again, just to even put that into perspective, just
That's that. I still 8 more episodes is 4 seasons. That's 4 years.
right,
It's just I still part of me can't fathom that. It's like
right, exactly,
we're doing this, we've done this, and we're going to continue to do it. And
right,
we're not bragging, and we hope that no one takes it as that. We're patting ourselves on the back. We're not. We're just we grew up differently.
right,
We've said many times we've come from humble beginnings. We've had to kick, claw, and scratch our way through our careers. We've had some very crappy experiences throughout our lives. And that's why it amazes us because we never thought that we would go to college. We never thought that we'd get a college education, a master's degree, a doctorate degree, that we'd be authors, that we'd be professors and college educators and
business owners,
podcasters, business
podcasters,
owners. We never
right,
thought of any of that. And
right,
it's just it's just so hard to believe that two guys that came from basically nowhere are doing this.
right. I was sharing this experience. I've been so high this past week. Just anytime anybody brings up the podcast. Now, I'm not talking high on some type of
Thank you. I was like,
drug or
wow,
anything.
you didn't even invite
No,
me on that
no,
one.
no. This is again that natural high of
Yeah.
again reaching, just thinking about the idea of reaching this milestone, to
Hmm.
to to know that 200 was coming up. And so I was telling this young man, he's thinking about, he wants to do something, and I was suggesting maybe a podcast, and I was sharing with him, like you said, the equipment you need, and even I showed him just the thumbnail of our podcast, and he looked at it, was like, I told him we had green screens. He's like, "Oh, I thought you both had the same picture." He said, I couldn't figure that." So I was just, sharing all this perception that he had about the podcast and all these things, and so I'm excited to see if he moves forward with this, or
Yeah.
if he's, gets excited about it as well. But it just, yeah, everybody that I've talked to this past week, that's what I've been talking about, the upcoming 200 episode. Just because, like I said, I know I'm going to get off here, and I know we got family coming over today, and we'll be sharing that. But it's again, it's an amazing feeling to know that we've done something consistent enough to be at this level, and like you said, the 2% club. To again, even think that we've made it to this point.
Hmm.
Again, feeling grateful, and just humbled by this
Absolutely.
experience, to again meet new people, continue our journey, and change our journey, alter our journey in different ways that we didn't know was possible. Just it's just led to so many different things, and
Yeah.
and so
So I did a lot of opportunities to meet some
absolutely
wonderful, wonderful people.
right.
And,
Yep.
it's forgot what I was going to say. I just forgot what I was going to say. Totally just fell off the train.
No, again, it is, it's really, I mean, again, exciting to talk about this and to know that I just the 200, it's
Yeah.
just, it's crazy to believe again that we've done 200 episodes.
I
That's
think one of the
just
other things that's really meant a lot to us is when we hear feedback from like our guest speakers, or friends or family, or
Right.
people that we meet that say, oh, I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, or I listen to them all the time. It's
Right.
you know that's the coolest thing when you hear that people are listening. I mean, we see the
Right.
numbers and that sort of thing, but to hear people say, "Oh yeah, I listened to that one. That was a good one," or "That was
Right.
a great one," or "Have you thought about this?" It's
Right.
just that sort of feedback is, that it like puts a warm feeling in our hearts, because
Right.
we are humble. We try to be the best people we possibly can, and you know we're just people. We're ordinary people, or not so ordinary people, or
Right.
ordinary people that became not so ordinary, like our title says. So
Right.
um, we've got a couple minutes left, Joe. What are your final thoughts on
I'll
celebrating
do
episode 200? Holy cow!
again. Just again, it's such a great feeling, amazing feeling to get to this point on the podcast. Just the consistency, the discipline, the persistence, all has paid off and led us to this point. That
Mhm.
this point in time, that again we've reached this milestone, and like I said, starting day one, didn't know this was possible. Back then, we didn't look at statistics. We didn't say, well,
No.
how many does it take for us to get to any percentages? It wasn't until start later when we started to, realize, okay, we're at 20. Like you said, we celebrated 25. And we started looking at it, okay, so we that was one milestone because we had reached a milestone. And then again, it's still never been about, okay, let's get to 1,000 or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's still just
What can we share
we
this week?
enjoy, yeah, we enjoy doing this, so we continue to do this. So in 5 6 years, we maybe are closer to 400 or 500, and we're having the same conversation or the same celebratory episode, whereas
Yeah.
we've reached another milestone. Every day, every podcast is a milestone because we're getting further and further ahead of where we were. And we've said this so many times on our podcast. It's about taking a step forward. However small that step is, that's what we want to pass on to you. It's the fact that it doesn't have to be a 200 episode. It could be, again, just getting up, taking one step out of bed. It could just be opening a door. It could be any of those things. Just remember, it does make a difference. You do win when you can push forward the next day, the next step. That's what we want to continue to convey in our podcast, that you're moving forward, then that's success.
Yeah. And if two ordinary guys like us can do it, you can do it too. And the
Yep.
only thing I'm going to add is we just want to send out the sincerest, most humble gratitude and thanks to all of our podcast guest speakers, all of our viewers and listeners. We appreciate every one of you, um, and we really hope that you're enjoying it as much as we are. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us on the 200th episode
Yep.
of the Journeys
200.
of Not So Ordinary People podcast, your personal professional career development podcast. Um, and I will keep it short and sweet. With that, we want you to continue being your not so ordinary you.
200.
200.